Today I'm going to show you that the New Testament is a lie and that you should not believe in Christianity. And this can be applied to the doctrine of the Quran as well, because it also attaches itself to the Old Testament. So I'm going to prove using the New Testament scriptures, but you can apply this to the Quran wherever it matches up, because I'm going to show you that the New Testament is lie and that it's telling you to sin against God. So if you are a person who follows the Christian doctrine or Quran, you first must admit that both of those books attach themselves to the Old Testament, right? They are saying that they are attached to the God that saved the Israelites out of Egypt, right? And that gave them these laws, the Ten Commandments and such on. So what we're going to do is review it and see from the beginning who this Bible is about. So in the beginning, it tells you that God created the heaven and the earth. And this God, he also created a nation of people called the Israelites, who were in Egypt and they were slaves. And as you can see, they're black and they were working, doing all this work, and they were also working in nakedness. Now, this is the same condition that black people are in this country. They were slaves and they served their oppressors in nakedness as well, and we are still in the same land that we were held slaves at. So we are still in captivity, right? So so this God, he rescued them and saved them out of Egypt, and he introduced himself to them as God and said, I saved you out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So we know that this God saves people who are in slavery. Just as black people are in slavery, we would want to seek this God, right? So what did God instruct these people when he saved them? Well, he again introduced himself as God, as the one that saved them out of Egypt, and he told them not to have any other gods before him. So that means there could not be a JC telling you that you can't get to God unless you pray in his name or come through him, because God already said there's no one to be put before him. He also instructed the Israelites that they're not supposed to bow down or serve anyone else. The New Testament, JC, commands you to serve him in order to get the honor of God, right? So this cannot be, because he just told them not to serve anyone else. He also said that his name is Lord, right? He's a male figure because he says he. And he said there's no one else beside him. So that means there cannot be a JC that sits on the right hand side of God, right? Now, God already instructed them that there's no one else beside him, right? So let's see if later down the line he decided to change his mind and introduce them to someone else. And you can type in the name JC and see that nothing comes up under that, right? And this is his name that was given in the New Testament. So that should give you a clue that something's not right, because he's not mentioned anywhere in the Old Testament. Another name that he's gone by is Son of God. Now, if you type in Son of God without the S, nothing will come up. So you have to add an S there. And the only place that this name is referenced is 5 times. And it's talking about the angels that came down and mated with the women and had giants and that were devouring the people. And I will show you proof that these giants did exist. They're real skeletons. So you can't deny that this book is true. You can't deny that it's true, because there are parts in there that are the things that you can look up and see that they're real. So this Son of God that it's mentioning is not talking about any child of God coming to save people. It's talking about giants. Okay, so we know so far that JC is not the Son of God that this Old Testament has mentioned, and his name is not mentioned anywhere in the Old Testament. Now, the Hebrew Israelite camps, they believe that this verse in the New Testament is talking about JC and that he was created in the beginning. So therefore, every part that you see where the word Lord is talking about JC. So what we're going to do is go to that verse that they're talking about, that God created the light, and see if this is actually JC. What we're going to do is replace the word light with his name. We'll read it and see if it makes sense. And God said, let there be JC, and there was JC. And God saw the JC that it was good, and God divided the JC from the darkness. And God called the JC day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. So as I can see, this is talking about creating the first day, separating the light from the darkness, and now we have days, right? So this is not talking about a man. It's talking about how the first day on earth was created. So let's see if you agree. Is the light in Genesis talking about JC? Type in A if you do believe that it's still talking about JC, or B if you do not believe that it's talking about him. So now that we know the Old Testament makes no mention of JC, what did God tell the Israelites not to do? We know that he told them who he was, and that they're not supposed to, there's no one else beside him. He told them that after he gave them the instructions, that they're not supposed to change any of his instructions, right? But when you get to the New Testament, everything has changed. It starts telling you to do different things. And it tells you that JC says to keep his commandments. So what are the commandments that JC tells you to do? What is it that he wants you to do? In the first verse, we know it tells you to serve him and follow him, right? The second verse, he's actually telling you to commit idolatry, to pick up your cross and follow him. Now, we know that you can't actually pick up a crucifixion cross. We know that you can't pick up an imaginary cross, right? So the cross that he's talking about is the symbol that identifies yourself as a Christian. It can be a necklace cross, the fish symbol, the praying hands, the man on the hanging from the wooden cross, any symbol that identifies as Christianity. This is what it's telling you to do, which is against the Old Testament. God clearly told them not to make any graven images of anything, and they're not supposed to bow down to it. So this is commanding you to commit a sin. The third one commands you to give up all of your money and your wealth. This is what they teach you in the church. They tell you to give your 10% tithing, and also to give up your offerings, and you do this faithfully, right? So it's telling you to be poor if you want to inherit the treasures in heaven, which makes no sense, because the whole point is to be blessed on earth while you're living, not after you go to heaven, you know. So this is telling you to give up all your money, and you can see that the church pastors, they're not doing anything righteous with the money. They're not helping the poor, feeding the needy. They're making themselves rich. They're living in fancy houses or cars, and they're rich. So you're making these wicked pastors rich by following the New Testament.